Wilson and okay, Katie, we are live.
Hi,
Super
Jennifer.
excited. I'm so glad that you joined me today. Thank you.
Thank
Miss
you.
Katie Kowalski, real estate agent extraordinaire. But we are here to talk about buyers. Right now, Wilmington has a huge influx of buyers moving from all other states. And we've quickly experiencing that no matter how experienced you are in buying real estate, if you haven't bought anything in North Carolina, it's a whole different ballgame. So we're here to go over questions that buyers have when they move in from out of state. Katie,
Yes.
what's like one of the important factors or one of the good questions? I guess all questions are good, but a question that your buyers ask you, an out of state buyer moving here that's kind of unusual.
So
Like,
two things that I've learned in that have come up since we've had so many out of state buyers in the last couple of years. One is our due diligence, and what does that mean? And we can talk about that a little bit, and then also our closing process. From state to state, that varies. I think North Carolina has a pretty quick close. We can typically close within 30 days. I've learned that other states, that's not always the
yeah,
case.
New
So
York is like 90 days, I believe.
yeah. And they have a whole different process where, we use an attorney to do the deed prep and the title search, but you don't really engage with the attorney until closing day and you go sign the paperwork.
Which is also weird.
Yeah,
From
other states, work primarily with the attorney through that process, and we don't have that. So
that's right.
um,
So the timeline's 30 days
mhm,
from
mhm.
contract to close. So after you find a home,
Typically, of course, there's always those one-offs, but yes, ideally, in most cases, you can get
right?
through it.
Oh, yeah, 30 days is standard. I would 100% agree with you. And then what about? I know the other day I had somebody asking me about inspections and what inspections do we do here? Who orders the inspection? Who pays for them? What's the cost? What
Yeah.
are you seeing?
So, that's one of the things I start the discussion with my clients is always about North Carolina is a caveat emptor state, meaning that's the buyer beware. Like we have a time period to do our investigating, but the seller has no responsibility to take care of anything. And that again differs, in different states, they have to sell a safe product. They don't, but our contract states that every sale
As
is
is.
and so the sellers really do not have to do anything, and that's important to know up front when you're walking through the house or things come to your attention or you're putting up your due diligence money, that sort of thing. So
I also think that's a really good point as to why you need an experienced realtor because you need somebody that can. And we're certainly not home inspectors and don't pretend to be, but if you're selling 100 homes a year, you start seeing the problems and you're engaging with a home inspector and you're learning more so that you can teach your next buyer. If you have sloping floors, if your floors cup, if settlement cracks, anything. I think it's important to have an experienced realtor that notices those things to make the buyer aware up front, right?
yeah, I
And
completely
obviously more stuff could show up on inspections, but
right. And I never would want to pretend to be an inspector, but in this time right now, as houses are moving so quickly, I feel like you may only get to spend 30, 45 minutes in the house before you're making a decision about what kind of offer you want to make. And so that is important that you're looking at certain, some of the big ticket items, if it's just, we need to change paint. Okay. But if it's like, going to be
you need
real,
somebody who knows what they're doing that could say, hey, look, this, start pointing out the things that they see that could potentially be big.
yeah. Yeah.
Right? So a typical home inspections that I've seen that we do here, we do a home inspection, a pest inspection, which is for termites, or any wood eating animals. The house always
wood destroying insect report, WDIR.
That's exactly the verbiage. I had today I got back from a home inspection and they did have termites and they also had beetles. Yeah, in the crawl space. I could not have seen that. That was outside of my realm, my scope.
Well, okay. So with that, is now, do you run away from that house because there's termites there?
That's a good question. So no, my buyers were not scared of them. I mean, it wasn't I mean, if it was a huge amount of damage, but the termites are just a little bit in the garage, nothing major. And so with that, you would just get it exterminated and bonded. So with that bond, we do have termites. We are a moist, warm climate with sandy soils. Termites love us, but you just get it exterminated and then have them come out once a year to check it. Yeah. It's a pretty easy. That's a pretty easy process. So we do the home inspection and the pest inspection. I've never done a radon inspection. Have you? Never had anybody ask for it?
I haven't. I always explain to buyers that, it can exist everywhere. You have the option to get one. It's costly, but you can always order if you have a concern about it. I mean, especially folks moving in from other places in the country where radon is more
prevalent.
But I know you can get a test. You can buy a test at Home Depot and do it yourself. So
never heard of. I mean, I've seen reports in the last year or two, but people, I don't know. I've never actually experienced any radon. So and then so those are the basic. You think those are probably the basic inspections. And a home inspection, the cost on it depends on the size of the home and the age of the home. If there's a crawl space. We think roughly about $500 to $600. And then the pest inspection is what, $75? Yeah. And who pays for those inspections?
The buyers, again, it's the buyer's opportunity to look for everything. So the buyers are going to pay for that. Also, if you have septic or well, it's a good idea to get those inspected as well.
And the air conditioning. There's a lot of inspections you could do, but I think the common ones, right, are the home and pest.
So starting with the home inspection, you try and as soon as we get under contract, to try and get that home inspection done right away, because that's going to tell us if we need to get a structural engineer in, if we need to get an HVAC person, or that's going to kind of open up what other inspections we should have.
100% agree. That home inspection I was at today was on the 1917 farmhouse. I don't know if anybody's followed it on Instagram. The woman has 65,000 followers. So I represent the buyer buying that one. And the home, it's in Regalwood.
Okay. Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting.
The inspector was interesting, but from there he did, he recommended us having a structural engineer come in. There's some places in the floor that needed some looking at. So, it's interesting. So we started off there, but now, I came back and ordered a structural engineer to get under there.
Okay. Yeah. That will give you recommendations, and not always, they can either fix it, or if it's something that can, give the buyer the assurance that down the road, this might be a cost that you're going to incur.
That's exactly right. So you know what you're buying, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to buy anything that you're unaware of potential problems. So I think from contract to closing. So the people come into town. What do they need? They're coming in from Florida. What do they need to bring with them to buy a home in Wilmington?
Well, definitely needing to have, either verification of assets or pre-qualification or pre-approval, basically, so that they're ready. Pretty much any offer that you're going to submit, you're going to have to submit that with the offer. So might as well get that out of the way. And then, a checkbook. I mean, that due diligence is due with the contract. So, and that sometimes becomes an issue if you have to wire money or overnight that check.
So come prepared.
Yeah,
right?
come prepared. So then
you meet with them. Now they've come into town and they have their verification of assets, their pre-approval. They have checkbook. They've found the house that they've wanted. They have to have. It's this beautiful beach cottage overlooking the ocean, and they cannot wait to walk along the beach and watch the sunset and drink a glass of wine. Okay, so you rent the offer, right? And it gets accepted.
Yay.
So now you're under contract.
First step.
So from contract to close is 30 days, roughly, usually. And then when do inspections come in and who orders those?
So from that process, as soon as we get that executable contract, that a copy of it is going to be shared with our transaction coordinator. So she starts doing the backhand stuff in our office. We're going to schedule.
Shout out to Allie Bullock.
Allie Bullock. We're going to send a copy to an attorney the closing attorney. We're going to get that to your lender so that they can start doing the underwriting and order the appraisal. So all those things kind of simultaneously start happening in the background, and then we'll start scheduling the inspection. So if sometimes you'll have a buyer that already has some vendors that they want to work with or trades that they want to work with. Most times they don't. So we have vendor or partners that we use on a regular basis. So
and that's awesome because they also get us in. I mean,
yeah,
exactly.
We can get them in pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're doing this and we're doing it in 30 days, timing is super important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we do all the inspections and then get the report back and negotiate any repairs. Again, the seller doesn't have to do any repairs, but we have that time. We can negotiate second stage of negotiations. Yeah. And all of that has to be done within the due diligence timeframe.
Yes. So again, like we mentioned the due diligence, and that's one thing that I have learned is much different in our state versus a lot of other places in the country. So the due diligence it's a time period. It's time sensitive. It's also usually there's a monetary. I mean, in all cases right now, there's a monetary. There's a number associated with. Yeah, there's money associated.
Non-refundable. Let's be clear.
A high number. But it gives us the access to get in the house and do that and the inspections and things like that and take it off the market so that they're not accepting any other contracts. But it's time sensitive. So, it could be 2 to 3 weeks. That's when we're going to get the inspections, that your lender's going to order the appraisal. We're going to find out everything that we need to about this house and decide if this is, everything that this is what you want to do. If you were to cancel for whatever reason during that due diligence period, you lose that due diligence money is your at-risk money. So you forfeit that money. It goes straight to the seller, but you can cancel the contract and not be in breach of contract.
So let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. And I'm just playing devil's advocate. I already know the answer, but this is what 100% of my buyers say. So what if I do the home inspection and something catastrophic is found that we just did not see, we didn't know about, but the house is a $400,000 house and the fix is going to be a $300,000 fix? Do they get their due diligence money back?
Mm-mm.
It's not non-refundable. If it doesn't raise,
non-refundable. It goes straight to the seller cashes it. Now, when we get all the way to contract, that money goes towards the purchase price. So that's not an additional down payment or anything. That is part of what you've offered to pay for the house. So yeah, it typically becomes part of your down payment. But I mean, there's literally, I've never seen due diligence returned.
Yeah, no. The contract states it is the buyer's right to terminate, right? Mm-hmm. So cheers. Do you have wine in there?
Cheers.
I have a little vodka. Yeah, we have to. Yeah,
that's right. Well, I have at 5, right?
that's exactly right. But I think that that is a good point. And then what is the price that you're seeing? Everybody's always asking me, like, how much is due diligence? And again, I think that's strongly reflective on the price of the home. Mm-hmm. Right? More expensive homes going to have a higher due diligence. But what are you seeing? I know there's not an average. What would you tell a buyer?
Well, so that kind of depends and on a couple different things, because it is at-risk money. So you've got to be willing to, if we do these inspections and you find out something that we did not see or have any idea about, you got to be able to lose it if you don't want the house. It also depends on how long the house has been on the market. So if you go into a house that is move-in ready, looks very well maintained, it's priced right, that there's going to be 13 showings in 2 days.
So they're more than likely going to have multiple offers.
You're going to have multiple offers. Then that becomes like a big competitive. That's your piece edge to be very competitive, because I tell my buyers, I'm like, you're essentially telling the sellers that you are not going to nitpick on an inspection report. And it doesn't mean to say that you can't back out, but you're coming in as a strong buyer and you're not going to be scared off by things that might come back on an inspection report. If the house has been on the market for a while and you walk through it and you know that it's got some work, I wouldn't suggest putting down a huge down payment. A due diligence, but We
Well, I
still
think
need.
that's too back to why it's important to have an experienced agent, somebody to walk you through and point out everything that they see and know. Of course, there's things beyond our knowledge or
Mhm.
experience. We're not a home inspector, we're not an appraisal, but we're damn good at what we do and we have a lot of experience. So, I mean, it's important to have that so that when you put down 5,000 or 3,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 that is non-refundable, you
Mhm.
have a good idea of what you're getting into.
Yes.
Right?
And you clearly understand that that is not refundable. And
That's exactly right.
we have many conversations about the fact that that is something at risk. So,
Yeah. So in the way the contract reads is that is the buyer's right to terminate, and it's termination money. It's saying,
Mhm.
seller, thank you for taking your house off the market for this due diligence time frame, whether it be 20 or 25 days, while I do all my investigation to see if I really want to buy it.
Yeah.
Right. So, so I'm looking at my notes that I have, but I was trying to think, are there anything else that you would?
Well, the other part of the contract is the funds. So we talked about the due diligence, and right now that is definitely the most important piece in the contract that I'm finding. I mean, aside from price and your closing dates and that sort of thing, but the other part is the earnest money. You know, that used to be kind of just a good faith that you showed the sellers that you kind of had your ducks in the row and you had
You had
cash.
some money to put down.
I'm seeing, and I don't know about you, Jennifer, but I'm seeing that amount be much less and sometimes even zero.
Yeah, I would tell you when I represent a seller, I don't let it be zero because the earnest money is 100% refundable
If
as long as you terminate within the due diligence time frame. So where if you represent the seller, which I'm shifting gears because I know we're talking about buyers, but if you represent a seller, you do want a little bit. You don't want it. You want mostly due diligence because that's non-refundable. That is a check to the seller. However, you do want some earnest money because you don't want the buyer to prolong the closing if he can't close. You want to encourage them to terminate within that due diligence time frame. But if they don't have earnest money, they don't have anything else to lose.
Yeah.
So the earnest money is refundable unless you terminate after the due diligence time frame. Right. So it's like that second little caveat just to keep everybody moving in the same direction.
Right. Yes.
But I agree. There's been a huge shift. I used to tell people it was 1%. The earnest money was statistically 1%. And now I see the due diligence is about 5,000 and the earnest money is about 1,000.
Right.
Roughly. Again,
depending on the, yeah.
And all the variables, multiple offers and all that.
Yeah. But talk to get a realtor to help you out.
Yeah. So to sum it up, come to town prepared with either a pre-approval letter, verification of assets, and a checkbook. Find you a house, and from the day you go under contract to close, 30 days. Once you go under contract, if you don't have a home inspector or a pest inspector or attorney, we order all of that for you. We turn it into our wonderful Allie, who is also my oldest daughter. Not to brag or anything, but she's fabulous. And then she schedules all the inspections and the attorney, and then we just sort of walk you through the process. Okay, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, and then get you to closing.
That's exactly. I think that's really good. I think those are key factors.
So, okay, here's a question. So I come to town from Florida, I've got a weekend, take me out, we go see houses, we find one, we make an offer. Now I have to go back home. When do I have to come back?
That's a good question. So it depends on if you want to be there for the home inspection or not. Like today, I go to all of my home inspections, but I only go to the last 30 minutes of them. I don't want to be in the home inspector's way, and they could take out my one today, 1917 farmhouse, took 5 hours. I just came, he texted me when he was 30 minutes from being completed, and I went. My buyer is local, but he could not go because he was at work. So I FaceTimed him while I was there, and we talked to the home inspector and went through the report and answered a lot of questions. So really, and you really don't have to be here for closing either. I mean, you can do that electronically. And and some things you do have to sign in front of a notary, but you could just take that with you. So
Mhm.
technically, you don't really have to be back. It just depends on
Yeah.
what you as the buyer feel comfortable with.
Comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Um,
Done it all ways. I feel like this, especially in the last couple of years. So
yeah. More and more people moving in from out of state. Absolutely. You have to be accommodating. So another thing is, the buyer doesn't find a house that weekend.
mhm.
And I have one right now actually from Florida, and we could not find a house that she liked. So she texts me when one hits the market, and I'll go out there and FaceTime her and see. And
Mhm.
I am brutally honest. Like I point out every
Well,
single flaw.
the smells. I always like to, the show take a view of the outside, the neighborhood, what's next door. I mean,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Coming in from out of town, you don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think those are all good points. Well, fabulous. I need 100 subscribers on YouTube. We just started this last week. I have like 40, but then I had to switch my YouTube channel. So now I have 0. So please subscribe. I need 100 in order to be able to customize the channel. So if you like the
Sign up,
information,
subscribe.
yeah, we're going to be doing this every Thursday live at 5. And so next week we'll go over sellers, what you need to know if you're thinking about selling your beach house.
Do it now. Now's a good time.
Excellent time. It is an excellent time. Yeah, and a lot of people, and I feel like I'm dragging this on, and I'm sorry, but another question a lot of people ask are about interest rates, and I think that's a very valid point. But in the past 2 weeks, we've had 3 different lenders come and talk to us, and everybody's offering great programs to get you lower than the national average, whether it be an ARM or whatever. They even have some first-time home buyer programs. So there are some still really good programs out there
Yeah.
to get you. The one I got under contract yesterday, he locked in at 4.75, which I didn't think was possible. I thought it would be more like 5.
Yeah. Well, the one lender, you were there, I think, when he said this. I mean, especially for some of our first-time home buyers that are renting now, I mean, don't get scared off with these interest rates, because right now you're paying 100% interest in rent, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's
So
exactly right. That good. I had somebody ask me that, and he's like, if I'm going to keep the house for 5 years and I'm going to sell it in 5 years, everybody, what happens if it it levels
bottom
off
out.
and I said, well, how much are you paying in rent right now? Paying $2,400 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, let's roughly, my math sucks, so let's just be clear. But let's say roughly it's 24,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more than that, but we'll say it's 24,000 a year. And in 5 years, that's 100,000, 150,000, whatever. I told you my math sucks, but it's a lot of money.
A lot of money that you just, is gone. So
That's exactly
yeah.
right. So you have nothing to show for it. Rent and rent here is super expensive.
Yeah, and I heard it's only going up. So
yeah, like 15% or something I was reading.
Yeah.
Anyway, Katie and I would love to help you. We do have a wonderful team. We actually have 12 agents on the team, and we've got Allie. I don't know. I keep giving her a shout out, but I think it's because she's been on my nerves for the past week, and I've been yelling at her.
Guilty.
Yeah, exactly. That's the mom's guilt a little bit. I'm like, okay. And then we have 2 other admins. So we are here to help and answer questions and get you into a home with all of our knowledge and expertise and our great staff of lenders, attorneys, inspectors, whatever it is you need.
We got you covered.
Thank you for joining me, Katie. Anything you want to say before you go?
Cheers. Wait, where am I? There we go.
Cheers. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Katie.
Let's help you out.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.